Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of United Talks podcast. And today we're going to be doing a tactical analysis. We've not done this in a while. We've talked about Amorim's system several times. We've talked about several other things that could have led to, understanding how Amorim system works and everything. But a lot of fans are beginning to kind of raise eyebrows as to if the system is actually working. I've even done a video talking about Amorim system working and how it is working, seeing as we've played just at the time we had played just 2 games. Now we've played 3 games in the Premier League and 1 game in the Carabao Cup where we crashed out, albeit to Grimsby Town as a banana peel match that we have all seen. Now everybody's, waxing and talking about, basically the Amorim system, the paradox around it. And as we look forward to, or as we head into the Manchester Derby season, where it's basically, Manchester United versus Manchester City, and it's going to definitely happen in the next couple of days. But I had thought to do this, to bring you this analysis, to get you to understand what is actually going on social media. And I saw this report by The Athletic, and I decided to analyze it. Obviously, some of the things that were talked about were with a little bit of bias, and basically they were trying to be factual, but we rely on The Athletic as well to give us factual, unbiased news and stuff and analysis. But obviously the article was focused on Crystal Palace and Oliver Glasner, so we had to do a comparative analysis of both systems because they were comparing the strengths of both systems and why Amorim's system is a fail or something, or a failure or something. But we're going to just kind of compare and trying to draw out the positives from Amorim's system. There's a paradox unfolding at Manchester United, a club in a perpetual turmoil at the moment. They spent a decade searching for a new identity, and now has a manager and a system that promises exactly that. And after the first 3 Premier League games of the new season, the results are bleak. You could tell 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. Basically, Man United have won twice since April and finished dismal 15th last term. On the surface, it looks like the same old story. And yet, if you look closer, the numbers tell a completely different tale. And I talked about the numbers in another video where I talked about where Man United are basically just topping the charts on certain aspects of or metrics of the numbers, as the case may be. In the last 10 matches, Manchester United have attempted more shots than any other team in the Premier League, and they've conceded fewer shots than all but one team, Manchester City. And this is not just the team that's struggling to create or defend. The team that is failing in the most fundamental way, and that is failing to execute or failing to finish their chances. Basically, what is happening at Old Trafford, and why is the system that looks so brilliant for another team failing badly here? And what does Manchester United need to do finally to turn potential into performance? To answer that, we have to start with the blueprint, and we have to look at how another manager, Oliver Glasner, took a similar system and turned a relegation threatened Crystal Palace side into one of the most exciting teams in the league. So Glasner, because obviously you hear certain reporters ignorantly, certain journalists and platforms ignorantly saying, oh, the system does not work, the system never works, blah blah blah, it hasn't worked in the Premier League. But they're ignorant to certain facts, especially considering that there are several teams that have played that similar system in the Premier League. Glasner's tactical philosophy at Crystal Palace is built on a few core principles: structure, discipline, and relentless focus on verticality. His team doesn't play for sterile possession. They want to get the ball forward fast. And on paper, it looks like a 3-4-2-1 formation, but in reality, it is far more fluid. Something that is also similar to what Ruben Amorim's formation requires of the entire team. When they have the ball and are building on attack, and that is Crystal Palace, they are in the 3-4-2-1 shape. But the moment they lose it, they actually snap back to a compact, disciplined 5-3-2 or 5-4-1 defensive block. The flexibility is the key to absorbing pressure and launching swift, aggressive counterattacks. But the system is just a set of lines on a tactical board, on a tactics board. What makes Glasner's own work so compelling is how, he identified and coached the players to fit the specific roles demanded by the system. And Oliver Glasner came to a club that was playing a 4-2 or 4-2-3-1 formation, and found the players that fit the system in that same formation without actually signing so much, and it started to work. But like I said, the back three, for instance, isn't just a defensive line, it's a foundation for everything. The wide center backs are chosen for their mobility and their comfort on the ball, so they can actually step into midfield and create overloads. The wing backs are the engine of the entire team, similar to what Ruben Amorim requires of his team, the lifeblood of the attack. They are expected to provide width, make deep runs and get back to defend. A perfect example in the aggressive right wing back Daniel Munoz, who provides an attacking threat, and also a more reserved Tyreek Mitchell on the left. Who maintains defensive stability. In the center of the pitch, the double pivot is a partnership of or complementary skills, like Chris Hughes, who provides the positional discipline and secures and creates a situation for secure passing, while Adam Wharton acts as the forward-thinking playmaker, dictating tempo and delivering aggressive, progressive passes into the final third. And the balance is a non-negotiable. Finally, the front line is built to create chaos. A lone striker in Jean-Philippe Mateta acts as the target man, holding up play, holding up the ball and occupying central defenders to create space. The two attacking midfielders, or as in this case, what you call the number 10s, operate in the half spaces, drawing markers and serving as the creative fulcrum. For example, Eberechi is a perfect embodiment of that role, and then has moved to Arsenal now. But with his ability to dribble at pace, and thread through balls to exploit gaps, and that is what obviously we have Mateusz Cunha doing for Manchester United, dribbling at pace and all of that. But we're going to compare it with what is obtainable at Manchester United. Now, the key takeaway for Crystal Palace model is that the system didn't just succeed in a vacuum. It flourished because the manager found players whose skill set were perfectly aligned with the demands or the demanding and specialized requirements. Obviously, that is what Ruben Amorim tried to build this season. That's why 5 players have been let go, including Andre Onana, which makes it 6, and all of that. They've been booted out of the club and of the team as a whole. But now it's the turn. Let's turn our attention to Manchester United and just analyze it. When Ruben Amorim arrived at Old Trafford, he inherited a squad that was in disarray, a team plagued by inconsistency, tactical disorganization, and a complete lack of identity. And that's what people tend to miss. The dismal 15th place finish last season was the lowest in the club's modern era, obviously under Amorim, but it started with Erik ten Hag. Fans were primed for a fresh start, a clear direction, a new playing style, but the early season struggles have brought a wave of disappointment, especially with this season. And yet, as we mentioned before, the data is telling a different story. Over the last 10 games, especially, United have attempted more shots than any other Premier League team in the division, and have conceded fewer shots, all but one team, which is Man City. They are also averaging a respectable 1.83 expected goals per match, and they are also converting an average of converting around 1.67 goals per game. Now, this is a team that can't create chances. It's a team that is not clinical in front of goal, and that's the problem that had plagued Manchester United since the beginning of the season. The problem is in a lack of opportunities, but a failure to execute them, and that's the main thing. And the issue isn't just in the attack. The defensive side have been described as being in disarray with large gaps between the team's lines. And I've talked about this in many of my videos when I've analyzed it, that the only way we can defend is if we can defend those half spaces between the two centre backs on one side or the two centre backs on the other. So, for example, we were playing a consistent back three of Lenioro, Matthijs de Ligt, and Luke Shaw. The spaces between de Ligt and Shaw, and the spaces between de Ligt and Euro, they usually are. There are gaps there, very tiny gaps that the number 10s of our opposing teams tend to take advantage of. Case in point, some of the preseason games, and even the game against Fulham that they scored, and the game against Burnley that they scored as well. Those two spaces, immediately de Ligt vacates it, something happens. Immediately Luke Shaw is out of position, something, so they have to be very disciplined, and that is key to make this system work. No, it's not a system that just doesn't create chances. We're just not clinical, and that's what's the most important. We're just not clinical. Um, Now, the occasionally we've been described as a system that is in disarray. Opponents are able to work through the midfield, and that is a worrying case basically for Manchester United. They walk through the midfield. Compounding this is the crisis of goalkeeping with Andrew Onana making a litany of mistakes, and his replacement Arthur Brandea proving equally a little bit unreliable. But albeit it's just only 3 games in Premier League season, we are not forgetting last season, but also putting last season behind us and focusing on this season. And if a system can work, if the system can work and the team is generating chances, why is the team failing spectacularly? That is the question, right? Now, the answer lies in the personnel. And like I said earlier, Crystal Palace didn't just start, succeeding or thriving in the system. They found players that work in the system and let go of players that didn't work, especially with Edouard. And that's pretty much what Edouard, as one of the players anyway, that's pretty much what Ruben Amorim is trying to do right now. Like I said, the system demands specific attributes, and Manchester United squads as it is currently constructed to fit a 4-2-3-1 system, and it lacks the pieces that make it function consistently, especially in the midfield. Now, let's go through the squad position by position. Now, I just talked about the midfield, but we're going to just break it down step by step. Starting at the back, the system requires a ball-playing goalkeeper to act as a sweeper and the first link in the build-up. The instability of Onana and Barender is a critical vulnerability that undermines, the entire foundation of the system. I know Onana was bought as a ball-playing goalkeeper, but he is absolutely short of confidence. Hence why he's been sold. And he had a horrible game. The last game they played, I think they played 2 international games. They won one and they lost one and all of that. So Onana had a horrible. Well, I won't put Onana to blame. First of all, Carlos Baleba shouldn't be losing the ball in the middle of the park. But obviously that led to a counter-attack, and the defense couldn't do anything to stop the player who ran through the defense to get to score. So it is what it is. So now the central defense also presents a bit of a problem. The back three needs pace and mobility to maintain a high line and execute aggressive press. The senior defenders like Harry Maguire lack a bit of speed in that role, but obviously you can tell that Matthijs de Ligt has that speed that you need for a defender. And like I said again, I keep emphasizing it's only 3 games. Their instinct to drop deep to cover for lack of pace is what had plagued Man United last season, and it creates a massive gap between the defense and the midfield. And I saw this in preseason, where when they were trying to go, when West Ham scored that only goal that Jarrett Bowen scored, I heard clearly Ruben Amorim screaming at Matthijs de Ligt. He shouted, "Mata, basically cover that striker that holds up the play, so you defend the ball high." And that's what he did against Victor Gyökeres against Arsenal. Instead of dropping deep, I mean, he has that pace. We've seen it. We've seen videos to show his pace and all that. A player like Lenny Yoro is seen as the ideal fit for the mobile, wide centre-back role, but both he and Lisandro Martinez have been plagued by injury, especially Lisandro Martinez. But now we have Luke Shaw, and most fans don't like it, but Luke Shaw has actually really played well this season, and it's good. He's had a rest now for 2 weeks, and he's back again against Manchester City on Sunday. But the biggest weakness is in the midfield. As I said earlier, the double pivot needs a mix of a ball winner and a playmaker. But above all, both players need to be athletic and pressure resistant. Casemiro, while experienced, lacks the mobility required for such physically demanding role. And this is why the midfield is often bypassed by opponents, because sometimes he also dives in and slides really quickly. Then we also go to the wing back. Right, the wing-back positions are equally demanding, requiring high stamina and technical ability. Players like Diogo Dalot basically have struggled when it comes to direct duels. And then obviously Patrick Dogu, getting used to the team, played well a couple of games this season, but has struggled as well, especially in the game against Grimsby Town. And then obviously we have Nusa Mazraoui, not as fast, but could also be played in multiple other positions. But yeah, there's been a persistent problem. Now, for the good news, the attacking part of the squad, in theory, it's a perfect fit for the system. attacking midfielder role is tailor-made for players who are technically skilled and can exploit half spaces. This is Bruno Fernandes' optimal position, but also he can play in the midfield. And then, for lack of midfielders who can dictate play, Bruno Fernandes has been deployed into midfield as one of the double pivots. Now, he thrives in chaos and unpredictability, basically. And the system encourages it as compared to what Crystal Palace also have to offer as well. One who can play intricate passes and dribble between the lines. The summer signings of Mateusz Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo were brought in, precisely to address the finishing inefficiencies and are perfectly suited for these creative roles. Now, the lone striker position is where the system can also be a huge success. The role requires a versatile forward who can also be both a target man and a goal scorer. While Rasmus Højlund has had the work ethic, he struggled with physicality. His struggles with physicality can actually be an issue. The new signing of Benjamin Sesko, on the other hand, is highlighted as an exceptional aerial dweller and also a crucial target man for long balls. And he hasn't scored a goal yet, but he was involved in the goal that they scored in the international break where they equalized against Sweden. And then he didn't get any goal, but he created chances in the next game. And obviously they lost that game. And obviously he's still getting used to the new environment and all of that. Barely started the game, barely come on as well. He's played a couple of games. He played the full 90 minutes for against Grimsby Town. But then there's still a whole lot that he needs to learn, especially about the system. And that's what Ruben Amorim keeps emphasizing on. So, basically, he's a good guy for long balls and he can win long balls. So, which means we could create more chances for him. Case in point, Bryan Mbeumo creating chances and crossing balls into the box. Now, the paradox is this. The club has invested heavily in the attacking players that fit the system, but the core foundational roles in the midfield and in defense don't have the right players to make it work. Ruben Amorim is building a defense that has a solid back three of, obviously, with Lenny Yoro, with Matthijs de Ligt, and with Luke Shaw. And we're stacked in defense when it comes to even options as well. But we also have a goalkeeping problem. That is also part of the defense. But of which I know with Onana gone now, it takes the pressure a little bit off Ataba and there. And also new keeper Senna Lamont as well can actually do a whole lot as a young keeper. And then, the veteran goalkeeper can also help and all of that. So yeah, there's a whole lot that needs to be discussed when it comes to this system and it working for Manchester United. Now, despite all these challenges, there is a path to success for Manchester United this season. The system itself is not the problem. I repeat, the system itself is not the problem. It's a proven tactical blueprint that can finally give the club long-term identity that it has lacked for years. The early struggles are, predictable, a predictable byproduct of a difficult transition period, but the underlying data points to a team that is slowly but surely evolving in the right direction is what lies there. Now, the system's primary advantage is the ability to create numerical superiority during build-up. The back three, combined with the double pivot, can easily outnumber an opponent's high press. The structured approach is a stark contrast to the old reliance on individual moments of brilliance, as many people have seen that we've always tried to rely solely on players like Bruno Fernandes. In attack, the formation excels at creating central overloads. The two attacking midfielders operate between the lines, drawing defenders and creating a box on the midfield that allows the team to dominate central areas, right? Now, the fluidity of the front five, the three attackers and the two wing backs makes the team makes the team's attack difficult to contain. Now, the fact that United are already creating a high volume of chances isn't a coincidence. It's a direct result of the system's design. Furthermore, Amorim's system is built on aggressive, high-intensity press and rapid transitions. The front five can put the most instant pressure on the opposition back line. Now, The simple, clear instructions for defending makes it even easy for players who have struggled with complex defensive duties in the past. The most profound advantage of the 3-4-2-1 for Manchester United is that it provides a clear, consistent identity. After years of quick fixes, the formation represents a long-term plan for sustained success. Now, the struggles we are seeing aren't a sign of failure, but a predictable part of the process of a team, learning a new philosophy. We struggled to learn this philosophy for years, but we've shipped our players to create space so that other players who fit the system can actually play in this system and all of that. Now, a title challenge remains pretty much, very much unlikely just yet. Nobody's expecting us to challenge for the title, but we're considering how we've played these first 3 games. You could say that there is progress. The competition from teams like Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal simply are too high, right? A return to Champions League qualification is also a massive challenge, but represents a high end of what can be expected, obviously, for us this season. A more reasonable and tangible expectation for the season is a top half finish, especially in the top 4, top 5, somewhere between 4th and 5th. For me, that's what I believe, though. The true measure of success this season won't be silverware, but it will be consistent improvement of the underlying metrics, right? A steady increase in the conversion rate of chances and a decrease in goals conceded from defensive lapses, and also a visible improvement in the cohesion between the lines will also signal progress and validate the system's long-term viability, right? The system is not the season for us, Manchester United, is not a sprint. It's a marathon of development. The foundation has been laid. Now the focus must be on building upon it with precision, as Amorim has said several times, that he wants a situation where his players can play this system even with their eyes closed. It's a system that is built with precision, with discipline, and a collective commitment to the process. And that is what it is. We need to, especially as players and as fans, trust the fact that this process is going to take its time. You might not like it now, but you eventually be liking it later, and you also be out there celebrating when the team's winning. So let's back the manager, back the team, and see the success that we can achieve this season. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. At least we've tried to do an analysis to compare both systems and to see where Manchester United can find positives from this system. Thank you so much for liking. If you haven't already, please do like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't have to miss anything as it relates to Manchester United. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, goodbye, and God bless.